Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on YouTube Live and Twitter. Having a little bit of trouble with Facebook Live right now, unfortunately. Hopefully we can get that resolved on Monday, but we're on YouTube, we're on Twitter. We've got a great show. Huge weekend in the NBA coming up, starting tonight, going through Sunday. The play-in tournament starts on Tuesday. So, man, you want to talk about a loaded schedule for the National Basketball Association? Man, this is it. This is what it's all about. Playoffs start next week, so 1 week to go, and this is when the NBA season gets interesting. So I'm going to talk about the Lakers in just a second. You know, obviously they're in a position to possibly go after the 6th seed and avoid that play-in tournament, and I will tell you why that would be a huge mistake for the Clippers to try and avoid the play-in, obviously after Portland's controversial loss last night to the Phoenix Suns. I'll get into that. Also, the Miami Heat took care of the Philadelphia 76ers last night, held Joel Embiid in check, held Tobias Harris in check, played really well. And I will tell you why the Heat can be a threat in the Eastern Conference against the likes of Milwaukee and Brooklyn and Philadelphia coming up later in the show. I also predict the Tampa Bay Buccaneers schedule and the Dallas Cowboys schedule. So that's a lot of show coming up. I'll start with the Lakers, though. Of course, they're in that 7th seed right now, which is not exactly where they thought they'd be, or where really any NBA fan, if you would have told us before the year, yeah, with 2 games left, the Lakers are going to be the 7th seed, we would have been shocked. But then again, if you'd have told me LeBron James would miss 2 of his last, I think, 27 games, 25 to 27 games, something like that, almost 30 games, then yeah, I probably wouldn't be shocked, because as great as Anthony Davis is, he can't lead a team to a championship. So you look at the Lakers right now. Okay, and I talked about them yesterday, how the criticism of LeBron and AD and the load management thing is just terrible. No. It really isn't. So the Lakers got 2 games left. Tomorrow they play the Indiana Pacers on the road, and Sunday they play the New Orleans Pelicans on the road. Now, when you look at the NBA standings right now, the Lakers are a half a game back of Portland for that 6th seed. Now, of course, Portland lost last night to the Phoenix Suns. It was a controversial last-second play. You know, don't have much time to get into it. I thought it was a foul. I thought Devin Booker did get his right shooting elbow clipped a little bit as he's going up for that shot. I did think it was a good call. But that's neither here nor there. So Portland is only a half a game up on the Lakers. They've only got 1 game left. The Lakers got 2 games. Now, keep in mind, Portland has the tiebreaker. Now, Portland also has to play Denver. Now, Denver still has a shot at the 3 seed. They still have a shot to jump Kawhi and the Clippers to be the 3 seed. So this is a big game for Denver, and it's a big game for Portland. So I think it's the game to watch on Sunday. But when you look at the Los Angeles Lakers, you see, okay, Indiana, yeah, they may get in the playoffs, but they're not going to make any noise. And then they're going to play the Pelicans, who are out of the playoffs. And they're not going to play Zion. Heck, they may not play Brandon Ingram or Lonzo Ball, possibly, because their season is virtually over. So for the Lakers and their fans, it's like, hey, let's go and avoid the play-in. And I'm here to tell you, that would be a big, big mistake. Here's why. Here is a perfect way to go to back this if you're the Lakers. LeBron could play any of these 2 games. He's not going to play back-to-back. LeBron and or AD could play either tomorrow night against Indiana or Sunday against New Orleans. Okay, have them on a minutes restriction. Give them some good basketball minutes, and then rest them. If you lose these last 2, if you lose one of these games, you are the 7th seed. At least going into the play-in tournament, you'll play either Golden State or Memphis, and Golden State and Memphis actually play on Sunday to be the 8th seed, to be in that 7-8 play-in game, and to not be in a lose and go home type situation with the 9-10 play-in game. So that's a big one on Sunday for my Warriors and for the Memphis Grizzlies. But if the Lakers are the 6th seed, let's say Portland loses to Denver and the Lakers win their next 2 games and they're the 6th seed. In the short term, it's like, hey, we avoided the play-in. We don't have to be in a position where we could be 2 losses away from our season being over. That may feel good in the moment. Chances are, though, the Clippers will be the 3 seed. You look at the Clippers' final 2 games of the season. It's against the Rockets and against the Thunder, 2 of the 3 worst teams in the Western Conference. They're going to win those 2 games. Here's the thing. I think the Clippers are a better team than the Lakers. But I've said all year, I've said it a million times, I'll say it once again on this show. It's not if the Clippers will lose, it is how they'll choke. That's what the Clippers do. Anytime there's expectations, and in their history, there really hasn't been any expectations of championships at all. But since they got Kawhi and PG, there have been expectations. And last year we saw they crumbled under those lofty championship expectations, choking a 3-1 deficit to the Denver Nuggets in the second round. So after that, and I'm obviously not a Clippers fan. I'm a Warriors fan, but I was kind of in that Clippers bandwagon, like, hey, they're going to win the championship this year. They got Kawhi, Paul George, Doc Rivers. They're deeper than the Lakers, and that fell flat on its face. And from that point on to today, I'm out of the Clippers, excuse me. I'm out of the Clippers. I don't care what they do. Unless they win the title, I'm out on them. So even if the Lakers get the Clippers, I think the Clippers will find a way to screw it up. But I said this yesterday, here's the real kicker for the Lakers. That is a series that will go 6 or 7 games. No, that's not going to be a series over in 5 games. It's not. That is a series that will go 6 or 7 games that the Lakers will have to battle it out with the Clippers. Now, it goes to 7 games. Lakers eliminate the Clippers. It's a great feeling in Laker Nation, but it will hurt them in the long run, and here's why. Remember a couple of years ago, not exactly the same circumstances, but somewhat similar. My Golden State Warriors, KD, Steph, Clay, Draymond, Iguodala, Boogie, Livingston. I mean, stacked. Back-to-back champions, back-to-back defending champions. And they played the Clippers in the first round, and the Clippers that year didn't even have an all-star. Right? Their best player was Lou Williams, who was their 6th man. Okay, but the Clippers played hard. They played great defense. They played physical. And they roughed up Golden State and took the series 6 games. Okay, and won 2 road games at Oracle. So they made that series tough on Golden State. There was never a doubt Golden State was going to win the series, but the Clippers made it as tough as they possibly could, to where later down the road, having to battle it out in that first round against those Clippers, came back to bite Golden State. Because you saw once they got to the finals against Toronto, they were beat up. They were tired. No, that's not only because of the Clippers. But then they go into that Houston series, coming off a tough series against the Clippers. Obviously, they knew beating Houston was going to be tough, and it was. They had to go on the road in a Game 6 where Steph had to go off for 33 points in the second half. Okay, then they're down in 3 of the 4 games against Portland in the Western Conference Finals. But they were able to win that series. But the accumulation of Clippers playing physical defense and Houston playing physical defense and Portland being up double digits in games 2 through 4 of that Western Conference Finals, it eventually took its toll on Golden State. They ran into a Toronto team that was fresher, healthier, and they fell in 6 games in the NBA Finals. So in the Lakers situation right here, you can play Anthony Davis and LeBron James for, let's say, 20 minutes tomorrow night against Indiana. And then sit them out. You'll probably lose to Indiana because, let's be honest, if you take LeBron and Anthony Davis out, I'd actually say the Pacers are better than the Lakers. The Lakers barely beat Houston the other night, okay? Houston's the worst team in the league, and the Lakers barely beat them without LeBron and AD. They wouldn't beat Indiana on the road without those two. So play those 2 guys a little bit, play your 2 superstars, okay, in the first half, maybe a little bit in the third quarter, sit them for the rest of the game. You'll probably lose that, and then you sit them on Sunday. By that point, whether you win or lose against New Orleans doesn't really matter because the tiebreaker with the Blazers will go in favor of the Blazers because they won the season series. All of that to say the Lakers will be in the play-in. Now, they'll face either Golden State or they'll face Memphis. Okay? Now, Lakers will and should be favored to win that play-in game on Tuesday. It'll be Tuesday or Wednesday. I think it will be on Tuesday. So they win that game. They have a few days. Obviously, LeBron and AD will play that game. It's basically a playoff game. It's like a Game 6 or a Game 7. You get them ready to go. Lakers. I keep saying Clippers. Lakers have momentum going into the playoffs, and they're playing either Phoenix or Utah, both of which I think the Lakers could beat in 5 games. The Suns maybe could push at 6. Utah, that series is over in 5 games. It is, especially with Donovan Mitchell's health in the question, with Mike Conley's health in question. Lakers will win that series in 5 games. It won't be as tough. It won't be as grueling as a series would be against the Clippers. Lakers will have to play the Clippers in the playoffs. You might as well do it in the second round or in the conference finals. You don't want a tough series right off the bat. You don't, especially with Bron and AD dealing with injuries, with nagging injuries from this season, from this weird season. Okay, you don't want to just throw them out there in a tough 7-game series that we wouldn't normally see unless it were the Western Conference Finals. So that's what I'm saying. That could come back to bite them in the long run, similar to what it did with Golden State when they played the Clippers 2 years ago. So I think the Lakers have to avoid being the 6th seed. It may feel good. You get a week off. LeBron and AD can sit one of these next 2 games, play limited minutes in the other game, give them a little bit more rest for those injuries, win that play-in game on Tuesday, and be ready for the playoffs on Saturday or Sunday whenever they play game 1 against Phoenix or Utah. So I think it's pretty obvious. Like, why would you want to be the 6th seed and go right into a tough playoff series? Like, isn't that the goal? You want the easiest playoff series right off the bat. That's why these teams are looking to be the top seed in their conference, because presumably you would be playing the worst team in the playoffs, the 8th seed, right? Like, that's how it goes. So I think that's what the Lakers are thinking right now, and I think that's where the direction they need to go. I really do. So let me look at let me predict the Dallas Cowboys schedule. I'll get to Tampa Bay right after Dallas. So the Cowboys last year, obviously, I predicted to go to the NFC Championship game and fall to the eventual Super Bowl champion. I predicted Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That, of course, did not happen. Dallas did not even make the playoffs. They finished 6-10. That was in large part due to the fact that A, Dak went down in week 5 with that gruesome ankle injury, and B, the defense was probably the worst it was in franchise history outside of their first year as a franchise back all the way in 1960. So it was not an ideal year for the Dallas Cowboys. And for our live stream audience, I am wearing my Dallas Cowboys t-shirt and my Dak Prescott hat. So there you go. But when I look at the Cowboys this season, I looked at their home schedule, road schedule. I think Dallas can go 8-0 at home. They play 8. It's a 17-game season. They play 8 home games, 9 road games, because the 17th game, for those of you that don't know, is going to be an AFC-NFC kind of matchup between an AFC team and an NFC team. This year, the AFC teams will have the home field advantage. Next year, it will shift to the NFC, and it will go back and forth over the next few years. This year, so of course, Dallas is an NFC team. They will go on the road. That 17th game will be in week 6 against the New England Patriots in Foxborough at Gillette Stadium. I look at Dallas's home schedule, and it's really not that tough. Like I was thinking about it, and I was like, this really isn't that bad. So Dallas's home schedule consists of Philadelphia, who won 4 games last year, Carolina. I'd like Carolina this year. That will not be an easy game for Dallas. The Giants, I think the Giants are Dallas's biggest threat in the NFC East, not Washington, who I think takes a step back. Denver, come on, Denver with Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater, I'm terrified. The Atlanta Falcons, well, we all know what the Falcons do in big close games. They infamously blew the onside kick at the end of the game last year against the Cowboys. Okay, you got the Raiders, who have no defense whatsoever. Again, did not address it in the draft. Washington, I just mentioned, will take a step back, and Arizona. I actually think Arizona is going to be their toughest home game. I think Arizona is going to make the playoffs. I really do. They almost made it last year. I thought about making them my sleeper team last year, but I didn't. They barely missed the playoffs. They're going to make it this year. They got better in the offseason. The road schedule for Dallas is a different story. They open, obviously, the very first game, opening night of the NFL season is going to be in Tampa Bay, Florida. Dallas, Tampa Bay against the champs. That is not ideal for the Cowboys. Then they got a road date at the Chargers. I think the Chargers could be a fringe playoff team this year. You look at the New England Patriots. I think New England's going to be solid this year. Not a playoff team, but better than last year. Minnesota, I think, has a shot to win the NFC North. I think Green Bay takes a step back. Kansas City, we're talking about the AFC champs 2 years in a row, have been to 3 straight AFC championship games. You look at the Saints, who I think are not going to be as bad as people give them credit for being, because I think Jameis Winston could possibly lead them to the playoffs this year. Not a division, but the playoffs. So at the Saints, in that road environment, On Thursday Night Football, primetime game, that is not going to be an easy one for Dallas. Okay, road date at Washington, Giants, Philadelphia. So there you go. Road schedule is clearly more difficult for Dallas than the home schedule. Now, when I look at the schedule, maybe, how do I put this? Maybe I'm predicting the schedule, and I do this all the time, based on either previous predictions or bets that I've made with other podcasters. I've got a running bet. I've got two running bets. One is going to be a long-term one in regards to Mac Jones. That's another story for another day. But first sports bet that I've made as a podcaster is with another sports podcaster, Barry Grant Jr. Shout out to him from the All Even podcast. Y'all need to go check out his show. He's also a Dallas Cowboys fan, like myself, but he is not a Dak Prescott believer the way I've been since 2016. I've loved Dak Prescott since his senior year at Mississippi State. I said that guy, groomed under Romo, could be a franchise quarterback. Well, he was not sitting behind Romo for years. He was thrown right into the mix and led the Cowboys to the playoffs. So he even surpassed my expectations for him. I think Dak is a guy that can win a Super Bowl if he is given any kind of support like any other Super Bowl winning quarterback would be. So before I predict the schedule, when I sit back, I look at the Cowboys. Okay, Dak's back. That's already going to make them better than they were last year. Okay. You look at the fact that the offensive line is going to be healthier. Tyron Smith's back. Zach Martin's back. Lyle Collins, who didn't play a single game last season, he's back. Okay. I look at a wide receiving core that's among the best in the NFL. CeeDee Lamb had a good rookie season last year. Love CeeDee Lamb. Amari Cooper, even without Dak, had a pretty solid season. Gallup was not as good without Dak, but with Dak, they've got a special connection. Okay. You've got I know people talk about Zeke. I think Zeke's, I'm just going to go and throw it out. I think Zeke's the second best running back on this roster. I think Tony Pollard's better. Call me crazy. I think Tony Pollard's a better running back. But then we all know the biggest weakness of the Dallas Cowboys last year was obviously the defense. I mean, they gave up nearly three 300-yard rushing games. Not 300-yard passing games, 300-yard rushing games. Gave up over 300 against the Cleveland Browns. Okay? Had that game later in the season against Baltimore. It was a Tuesday night game. It was a Thursday night game because of the Ravens' COVID issues. It got rescheduled to the following Tuesday, and the Ravens nearly ran 300 yards against the Cowboys. And I'm trying to remember the third game. It might have been Washington that ran for nearly 300 yards against the Cowboys. So, long story short, this is a bad defense. They fired the defensive coordinator, Mike Nolan, who only got the job because he gave Mike McCarthy his first ever big coaching gig as the offensive coordinator of the San Francisco 49ers. So a little bit of cronyism going on there. And they fired him. Obviously, he did a horrendous job last year. You had players, and I thought this was weak on the part of the players because, like, what are you doing? Focus on yourself. But you had players calling him out anonymously to the Dallas media and just ripping their defensive coordinator. So it obviously didn't go smoothly. They bring in Dan Quinn. Now, I don't know what to think about Dan Quinn because his last couple of years in Atlanta, that defense was awful. That Atlanta defense was as bad as there was in the NFL. But then you look at, okay, the last time he was a defensive coordinator was in Seattle when they had a great defense, but Seattle also had Richard Sherman, Hall of Famer, Earl Thomas, Hall of Famer, Bobby Wagner, Hall of Famer, Cam Chancellor. One can make an argument he's a Hall of Famer. Like, they had some dudes on that. Michael Bennett, some can make an argument he's a Hall of Famer. They had some ballers on that Seattle Seahawks Legion of Boom defense. So was he going along for the ride? Quite possibly. I don't know. We'll find out this season. But he's going to go back to the 4-3 system, which Dallas is familiar with, especially the pass rushers, DeMarcus Lawrence, Randy Gregory. They're more comfortable in that system rather than the 3-4 defense that Mike Nolan brought in. So I look at all that. By the way, I loved the draft pick. I said in the show, even before the draft, I said, if Dallas doesn't get Patrick Surtain, I want Micah Parsons. Well, Pat Surtain was taking a pick before Dallas by Denver, And they of course, Dallas traded back to the 12th pick. Philly got Devontae Smith, and 2 picks later, the Dallas Cowboys got my guy, Micah Parsons from Penn State. Some argue Micah Parsons is the best defensive player in the draft. I know a year ago, before he opted out of the season last year, he was projected to be a top 5 pick. So Dallas, one can make an argument they stole him. So you have that. I love the Jabril Cox kid, the linebacker from LSU. He's a big-time playmaker. He will make them better. So you look at a pretty crowded linebacking room with Micah Parsons, Leighton Vander Esch, Jalen Smith, and now Jabril Cox. Also, Keanu Neal, wasn't a fan of this signing, but Keanu Neal is going to transition from being a safety to a linebacker. All that being considered, let's look at the Cowboys schedule after all of my rambling. So, of course, they start the year. One of the most, Chris Collinsworth at NBC called this the best opener that NBC has ever had. So that's saying something. The Dallas Cowboys will go on the road to Tampa Bay to play the defending Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Bucs. I think this will be a dogfight. I think it'll be close. I think it'll be an offensive fireworks show. Even with Tampa Bay's outstanding defense, keep in mind, at least for one game, Dallas's offensive line will be fully healthy. Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, Lyle Collins, 3 Pro Bowlers. Okay. Does Dallas get their running game going? Don't know. Tampa Bay was really good against the run last year, especially in the playoffs. So I don't know if Zeke will play any factor if the Cowboys do win. So we're talking about the Bucs. We're talking about Tom Brady. We're talking about a team that's going to be hyped coming into the year. They're going to want to go for 2 straight. I will take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win this game, to have Dallas start at 0-1, but I think Tampa Bay wins a close game. The following week, Dallas plays the Los Angeles Chargers. I think this will also be a tight ball game because I think the Chargers, again, could be a fringe playoff team. Justin Herbert, I think, takes that next step. Maybe he's an MVP candidate. Wouldn't be shocked if that were the case with the roster the Chargers have. They won 4 straight to close out last year. Almost saved Anthony Lynn's job, but of course he got fired. They brought in Brandon Staley. He is now the new head coach. I think Dallas beats the Chargers in a close game on the road in SoFi Stadium, the site of Super Bowl 56. And I think Dallas then goes to 1-1. Their first home game is a primetime game on Monday Night Football against the Philadelphia Eagles. I have Dallas winning this game easily. Philadelphia is a mess right now. And I feel bad because I like Jalen Hurts a lot. Jalen Hurts is a gamer. He's a great leader. I think if he cleans up the turnovers, he can possibly be a franchise quarterback. I think he's just in a bad situation in Philadelphia. Nobody in Philadelphia liked the head coaching hire of Nick Sirianni. I know they showed the war room in Philly during the draft, and everybody just looked miserable after one of their picks. It's kind of a mess in Philadelphia. Dallas will win this game easily and go to 2-1. The next game is against the Carolina Panthers. Now, you guys know what I think about the Carolina Panthers this year. Adding Sam Darnold with Joe Brady. Now, Joe Brady was Sam Darnold's, kind of his offensive guru at LSU when Joe Burrow had the greatest season any quarterback has ever had in the history of college football. Joe Brady's in Carolina in his second year. You're bringing in a Sam Darnold who's got a better offensive line, much better running game with Chuba Hubbard in the draft and Christian McCaffrey, who's going to be back healthy this year. You're talking about a defense that is getting better. Wouldn't shock me if Carolina made a playoff run this year. I like Carolina a lot this season. This will be a tough one for Dallas. I believe they will win a tight one, go to 3-1. Their next game, New York Giants at home, Week 5. Keep in mind, the last time these two teams played in Week 5, Dak Prescott, of course, went down with that ankle injury that cost him the rest of last season. I think this will be a tight game as well, but I think Dallas will pull away in the fourth quarter, win this one, and go to 4-1. The following game is going to be against the New England Patriots. Of course, again, the Patriots got better in the draft. In free agency, again, was not a fan of the Mac Jones drafting. I think Cam Newton, barring injury, is going to be the starter from game 1 to game 17 for the Patriots this season. I think Dallas wins this one on the road and goes to 5-1 going into their bye week in Week 7. They come back in Week 8 against the Minnesota Vikings. What's interesting about this, Dallas was 2-7 going into their bye week last season. Their first game back was at Minnesota, who was playing really good football. They had won 3 straight up to that point. Dallas had lost, I think, 4 straight games out of a bye, no momentum, and Mike McCarthy, shockingly to me, completely outcoached Mike Zimmer. And Dallas won that game at Minnesota with Andy Dalton. So with Dak Prescott, I think Dallas wins a game on Halloween night against the Minnesota Vikings, and they go to 6-1. They then follow at Denver, home game against Denver. Again, the Broncos are, I don't fear Denver in the slightest this year with Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater, whoever they start, unless if they trade for Aaron Rodgers, I think Denver beats Dallas because Aaron Rodgers is that great. I wouldn't be shocked if that happened. Today, Aaron Rodgers is not a Denver Bronco. So I have to go by either Teddy Bridgewater or Drew Lock. Neither of those two are beating Dallas on the road. The Cowboys win this game. They go to 7-1. The following week, this is an interesting one. Home game against Atlanta. Okay. The Atlanta Falcons last year obviously held a 19-point halftime lead at Dallas. The offense was turning the ball over. Defense couldn't buy a stop. Jerry Jones with, his most valuable franchise in the world, valued at $5.7 billion. Even with that, couldn't buy a stop to stop that high-powered Falcons offense, which now added Kyle flipping Pitts, for crying out loud. But Atlanta, as they always do, dating back to that 28-3 collapse in the Super Bowl against the Patriots, they find a way to lose. Some teams just find a way to win. Others find a way to lose. Atlanta's one of those teams. I think at this point in the year, Atlanta will be kind of reeling a little bit. I don't expect much from the Falcons at all this year, especially because of how bad their defense is. Dallas wins this game, goes to 8-1. Then, this is where the schedule gets tough. The second half of the schedule for Dallas is tough. If they're 8-1 at this point, I will be very happy because they will go on the road at Arrowhead Stadium, arguably the loudest venue in the NFL. It's going to be a full crowd, we anticipate, by that point on November the 21st against the Chiefs. Again, I think the Chiefs are going to come in ticked off, looking to avenge that Super Bowl loss last year to the Bucs. I think Kansas City wins this one easily against Dallas. Dallas drops to 8-2. Going into their Thanksgiving Day game against the Las Vegas Raiders. Vegas is very similar to Atlanta in that got a great offense. I think Atlanta's offense is slightly better than Vegas's, but you got Derek Carr, you got Darren Waller, you got Josh Jacobs. Okay, you've got really good receivers over there. So I think this will be a tough one for Dallas. The difference, though, or the similarities, I should say, between Vegas and Atlanta, both have awful defenses. Terrible. I think Dallas will beat Vegas at home Thanksgiving Day and go to 9-2. Going into a Thursday night matchup a week later against the New Orleans Saints. I like the Saints a lot this year. Don't love them. They're not going to beat Tampa Bay out for the division. They're not going to win the Super Bowl, but I do think the Saints will be a playoff team. Dallas will lose on the road to New Orleans. Sean Payton is obviously a much better game planner than Mike McCarthy. Dallas will drop to, that'd be 9-3. 9-3. Okay. They follow that up 10 days later with a road game against the Washington football team. Of course, I think Washington will be in the division race by this point in the season by December the 12th. 1 o'clock game. It very easily could could get flexed to a 4:25 game Eastern or a Sunday night football game after 8 o'clock. So that very well could happen. So that certainly factors into the conditions for this game, whether it's colder or not. It's going to be freezing in Landover, Maryland. I think Dallas falls to Washington. I think they split with the Washington football team this year. Dallas falls to Washington and drops to 9-4. Okay. They go on the road once again. They play 3 straight road games. They go on the road against the New York Giants. I think this is going to be the biggest game of the season to this point for Dallas because, again, I think the Giants are the biggest threat to the Cowboys in the NFC East, not Washington. So I think this one, mark it on your schedules. I think Week 15 against the New York Giants could determine the fate of the Dallas Cowboys in 2021. Even at this point, even with me thinking they'll have a 9-4 record. They'll go on the road. They will beat the Giants in a close game. Giants have a great defense. If Daniel Jones doesn't put up big numbers this year with the offense he has, Saquon Barkley. They added Kenny Galladay in free agency. They got Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram. They added Tony from Florida, who's a great gadget player. If he doesn't succeed with these guys, he's not your guy if you're the New York Giants. You've got everything else. I think if you slot, say, Aaron Rodgers in there, holy smokes, is that a Super Bowl team? I really do believe that. So it's all dependent on whether Daniel Jones could take that next step, whether the Giants will choose to move on from him or make him their franchise quarterback in the long term. That's another story for another day. Dallas wins a close game on the road at the Giants, goes to 10-4, going into another game against the Washington football team. This will be on Sunday Night Football in Dallas the day after Christmas. I think Dallas wins this one, even up the season series against the Washington football team, go to 11-4. They follow that up with a game against the Arizona Cardinals. And I think Dallas will fall to Arizona, drop to 11-5. Again, I like the Cardinals a lot this year. Remember what the Cardinals did to the Cowboys last year? Even if Dak had played, Dallas is not beating Arizona. We saw, Kyler Murray played terrible. He was terrible against a bad Cowboys defense, and the Cardinals still won by 4 touchdowns because they ran the ball all over the Cowboys. So there you go. I think they will fall to Arizona. They will finish the season with a win at Philadelphia to finish the season 12-5. 12-5. So I think Dallas will finish 12-5, be a top 3 seed in the NFC. And because of a bet I made with Barry, I think Dak Prescott is going to lead the Cowboys to the NFC Championship game. Because that was the bet. He said if Dak does not get them to the NFC Championship game, I got to go on his show, the All Even podcast, and eat crow. And basically say Dak isn't the guy. The Cowboys need to move on from him. They made the mistake signing him to a big extension. But if Dallas does get to the NFC Championship game, which of course if they do, Dak will be a big part in that, he got to come on my show, and he's got to tell me, you were right, Bryson. You were right. Dak Prescott is that dude. He is a possible top 5 quarterback in the NFL. And there you go. So that's pretty much the bet right there in a nutshell. So I think Dallas will finish 12-5. They will get to the NFC Championship game. Whether they'll get to the Super Bowl or not depends. Listen, we got another, 4 months before the NFL season starts. I'll do a big NFL show, NFL prediction show as far as like the totality of the season. Who's going to make the playoffs, win their division, who's going to make the Super Bowl. That's 4 months down the road. Today, I'm not ready to go as far as Cowboys in the Super Bowl quite yet, but I predict they'll be in the NFC Championship game. There we go. So Dallas will finish 12-5. They'll win the NFC East, and I think they will get to the NFC Championship game this season. So the team they will play on opening night, the defending Super Bowl champion, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let me go ahead before I predict the schedule, Tampa Bay fans, and my cousin's actually a lifelong Tampa Bay fan, and squash this bubble. Y'all ain't going 17-0 because nobody's going 17-0. Nobody's going 17-0. Come on, man. That's a stretch to say the least. But that being said, no need to predict the first game because I already did. I think Tampa Bay will beat Dallas in a close game on opening night to go to 1-0. Week 2, Tampa Bay plays a home game, 4:05 kickoff time on Fox. Probably be America's game of the week, depending on what the matchups are in week 2. I think they will beat the Atlanta Falcons to go to 2-0. Last time these two teams played in Tampa Bay, Tampa took care of Atlanta pretty easily. It was week 17 last year, but for what that's worth, Tampa Bay, took care of business and did their thing. Week 3, I think, will be the Buccaneers' first loss. At the Rams with Matthew Stafford. I think the Rams are absolutely a Super Bowl contender. Keep in mind, this team with Jared Goff being up and down, as inconsistent as any quarterback in the NFL last year, they put in some guy named John Wolford as his backup. Okay, Wolford gets hurt against the Seahawks in the wild card game, and Goff comes in, didn't really have to do much. The Rams ran all over the Seahawks. They beat Seattle on the road, and they go to the number 1 seed, Green Bay Packers, taking on the MVP, Aaron Rodgers. And that was a toss-up game until the fourth quarter with Jared Goff, who had a broken hand. Okay, so with an inconsistent quarterback who was hurt, and by the way, with Aaron Donald, their best player, arguably the best player in all of football, had a torn pec or something. He had some kind of big core injury. Something in his ribs. I don't know. I can't remember the exact injury, but it was major, and he was limited that entire game, and it was actually close going into the fourth quarter. So you add a healthy Rams team. Obviously, Sean McVay, one of the 3 or 4 best offensive coaches in football, along with Andy Reid and Sean Payton and guys like that. And you get an upgrade at the quarterback position in Matthew Stafford with a great running game, great offensive line, great receivers, outstanding defense, top 5 in the NFL. Rams will beat Tampa Bay in week 3. That'll be the big game on Fox, America's Game of the Week. Joe, Troy, and Aaron will be there. That'll be a big game. Tampa Bay will fall to the Rams in week 3, drop to 2-1. And then the game we are all looking forward to. Some have made the argument this week, this could be hyperbole, but some have called this the biggest or at least most anticipated regular season game in NFL history. Now that's saying something. There's been thousands and thousands and thousands of NFL regular season games, and some have made the argument, hey, this may be the most anticipated. Because week 4, talked about it in yesterday's show, Tom Brady comes home to his old master, Bill Belichick, who trained him, if you will, into being a champion. Some have made that argument. I would say that's true to an extent, but at some point Brady was carrying the load, not Belichick. That's neither here nor there. Point is, Tom Brady comes home, plays the New England Patriots. Okay? Big Sunday night game, NBC. Who knows what the television rating for that game will be. It'll be a packed house in Foxborough. Tom's going to get a standing ovation. It's going to be nuts. I think Tampa Bay, as I said yesterday, will go on the road and beat the New England Patriots on the road. And by the way, quick side note, Tom Brady could pass Drew Brees as for good. They went back and forth those last couple of years, but of course Drew Brees is retired. Tom Brady could pass Drew Brees for good as the all-time leading passer in NFL history in Foxborough, Massachusetts. So what a story that would be, of course, secondary to him coming back to New England. So then we go to week 5. Now this is an interesting game. Home game against the Miami Dolphins. Miami has a great defense. They were unbelievable all of last season. Heck, they were scoring more points on the offense some games. They were outscoring Tua. Whether Tua makes that next step, I got no idea right now. My gut tells me he does, because he won't be rehabbing that hip injury. That is huge. He'll be focused on obviously getting better, getting more acquainted with the Miami Dolphins offensive system. That is big for Tua Tagovailoa. So it's a week 5 game, 1 o'clock. Tampa Bay's just played 3 of their 4 games, big, prime time. Everybody's watching them around the country against Dallas and the Rams and the Patriots. And here is your good old-fashioned trap game in the NFL. Week 5 at home, just a 1 o'clock kickoff time on CBS. They will lose to the Miami Dolphins in week 5. I'm just here to tell you. Miami's got a short trip from Miami to Tampa Bay, short flight. Miami, this is going to be their biggest game of their season. Obviously, every game that the Bucs played is going to be their opponent's biggest game of the season. No difference for the Miami Dolphins in this case. Great defense. Again, Tampa Bay, 3 of their last 4 have been big national primetime games. Everybody's watching. They will lose to the Miami Dolphins in week 5 and drop to 3-2. But they got a road game. Thursday Night Football, quick turnaround, week 6 at the dysfunctional Philadelphia Eagles, and they will win that game handily and go to 4-2. I think Philadelphia could be, possibly have a top 5 draft pick this year. I think they're going to be terrible. So then we go to week 7. They play the Chicago Bears. Andy Dalton, I believe, will be the starter at this point in the year. I think we will see Justin Fields, but I think the first 10, maybe 11 games of the season, Andy Dalton will be the starter. They're going to want to get Justin Fields, the rookie, ready. So I think the Tampa Bay Bucks will beat the Chicago Bears at home and go to, that would be 5-2. They will go to 5-2 after beating the Bears. Then they got a big road game at the Saints, of course, the division rival. Halloween, 4:25, big game on Fox. I think Tampa Bay will fall to the Saints this year in the Dome as they did last year, drop to 5-3. Week 9 is their bye week. Week 10, they come back with a road game at the Washington football team. Of course, that is what started the big Super Bowl run, is a win at Washington against the story of the night, Taylor Heinicke, who was taking college classes and had to skip a class because I had a big playoff game against Tom Brady. You want to talk about a good excuse to skip class? My goodness. For Taylor Heinicke, I doubt he will be the starter this day. I think it'll be Ryan Fitzpatrick. Tampa Bay will go on the road, off a bye, beat Washington, and that will put them, let's see, at 6-3. They will be at 6-3 after their win against the Washington football team. Then they got a Monday nighter at home against the New York Giants. I think they will beat New York pretty easily and go to 7-3. Then they got a Week 12 game. I think this could be their toughest game of the year considering the defense. Indianapolis Colts. Again, this could be another trap game, possibly. At home, 1 o'clock kickoff. Maybe not everybody's going to be watching. This is a big game for Tampa Bay, and obviously a huge game for the Colts, who I think are going to win the AFC South. Tampa Bay will win this game against the Colts, close, and go to, let's see, that would be 8-3. They would go to 8-3 after their win against the Indianapolis Colts. Finishing now their final 6 games of the year. They got a Week 13 matchup at home against Atlanta. On the road at Atlanta. They will win this game fairly easily. Go to 9-3. Going to a home game against the Buffalo Bills. This is going to be an interesting one. I think Buffalo could upset Kansas City and get to the Super Bowl next year. I like Buffalo a lot because here's the thing about Buffalo. Josh Allen comes in as a rookie in 2018, and he's pretty bad. I mean, it was rough. It was a rough rookie year for Josh Allen, and people are questioning if the Bills made the right selection. But it came back, 2019, had a good year. Bills got to the playoffs. And then last year, not only did they get to the playoffs, but they were the number 2 seed, got to the AFC Championship game, and Josh Allen, in my view, was the 3rd place MVP behind Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes. So Josh Allen was great last year. Will he take even another big step next year? That remains to be seen. That will certainly be definitely a tough thing for him to do considering what he's done, or what he did last year in 2020. This could be Tampa Bay's hardest game in December. I think they will win this game close against the Buffalo Bills and go to, 10-3 by this point. So they'll get the double-digit win, followed up by a game at home against the New Orleans Saints. Now, keep in mind, the last time Tampa Bay played the Saints in Tampa, it was the embarrassment of the NFL season. The Saints walked into Tampa. I mean, just embarrassed the Buccaneers. Tom had arguably the worst game of his entire 21-year career, and the Bucs lost 38-3. They will remember that. It is Sunday night. They will beat the Saints. Heck, they may embarrass the Saints. Who knows? And win this game and go to 11-3. They got 2 road games back-to-back against the Panthers and the Jets. I think they'll win both of those. They will go to 13-3 and then win a home game to close out the year against the Carolina Panthers to finish the season 14-3. So let's see. I got so who do I have them losing to? Rams. They'll lose to the Rams. They'll lose to the Dolphins, and they will lose on the road against the Saints. They will finish the year, I believe, on a 9-game winning streak. Going into the playoffs, I would think a 14-3 record would probably get them the number 1 seed in the NFC and possibly another Super Bowl run. So there you go. That's just predicted 2 schedules right there. Dallas Cowboys, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Do they meet? Certainly, we all know they meet on opening night. Do they meet in January, late January, in the NFC Championship game? That remains to be seen. We will see what happens. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be a crazy NFL season. 17 games. Man, can't wait. Final topic of the day. Back to the NBA. The Miami Heat took care of business last night against the Philadelphia 76ers. They won 106-92. Joel Embiid was held in check for Philadelphia. Tobias Harris had a bad game the other night. I think only scored 6 points. Jimmy Butler did his thing. Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero. They took care of business at home against Philadelphia. Now, here's how I look at Miami. They're going to be either the 4th or 5th seed in the playoffs, most likely. whether it's 4 and they play Atlanta, whether they play possibly the Knicks, all of that, we will have to see how that plays out over the next 3 nights in the NBA. Which is going to be crazy. We know the Heat will not be in the play-in. The play-in is the teams in the play-in are pretty much set in the Eastern Conference. You got Boston, Charlotte, Indiana, Washington. Those will be your 4 play-in teams, not playoff teams, but play-in teams, which of course starts on Tuesday. So Miami don't have to worry about that. But all likelihood, they'll be the 4th or 5th seed. I think they will win their first round series regardless of who they play, whether it's the Knicks, whether it's the Hawks. I think Miami will win that series. So now you look at Philadelphia, look at Brooklyn. I think if Miami matches up with Philadelphia in the second round, this is a really interesting series because here's the thing. It's really similar to last year, if you think about it. Because last year, second round, I never believed in the Bucks all year last year, but I thought they were going to beat Miami. I did going into that season or into that series. I said, okay, I think the Bucks are going to win the series against the Heat. I think I said in 6 games. I think I said 6 games. So you had that. Bucks, best record in the league, MVP in Giannis, had championship aspirations and expectations by the general NBA public, and Miami had absolutely nothing to lose. Jimmy Butler probably got the guys together. He's like, man, ain't nobody thinks we're going to win this series. There's no pressure on us. Let's go on and play. Let's beat this team. We're better than this team. And ultimately, they proved, oh yeah, they're better than Milwaukee, and they won in 5 games. Because the thing we all know about a series, and this is as far as an individual matchup, or an individual, 2 teams facing each other in the playoffs. The reason I think the NBA and Major League Baseball is at least more interesting, this may be a hot take, but slightly more interesting than an NFL playoff game, is in the NFL, you just got to beat that team once. If you've got a 7 seed playing a 2 seed in the wild card round, the 7 seed is like, hey, if we can force some turnovers, we battle them out for 60 minutes, hey, we can beat them. We just got to win one game. In a series, barring injury, the best team wins because you got to beat them 4 times in possibly 7 tries. So the best team is always going to win a series unless there's injury, obviously, which of course we're never hoping for. So last year, the Miami Heat went to a series with the Milwaukee Bucks. No, come on, man. Nobody was gonna kill the Heat if they had lost to the Bucks, right? The Bucks were supposed to. Many thought the Bucks would get to the finals last year. Okay, I didn't, but many people thought the Bucks were going to get there. And Miami came in and dismantled Milwaukee in 5 games. I think this Philadelphia team is better than last year's Milwaukee team. Don't get me wrong. But I think when you sit back and look at it, it's like, okay, there's expectations for Philadelphia now. We're talking about 3 years. Is it 3 years or 4 years? 3. 3 years. This is the 4th of the Simmons-Embiid duo, right? Joel Embiid, who's a possible, he's not going to win the MVP, but he's going to finish in the top 5. And Ben Simmons, who is going to be Defensive Player of the Year this year. And this has obviously been their best year together. They're going to be the number 1 seed, best record in the Eastern Conference. And there is going to be legit pressure on the Sixers because you look at 2018, they came in, Simmons and Embiid, some thought they would get to the finals considering LeBron at the time had no help in Cleveland. Boston was without Kyrie and Gordon Hayward. And Toronto at the time were like, Toronto will screw it up. They'll find, Toronto's like the Clippers. They'll find a way to mess it up in the playoffs. And they did against the Cleveland Cavaliers. And LeBronto did his thing. But you look at it and you say, okay, Philadelphia had expectations in 2018, and they lost in 5 games to a 20-year-old Jason Tatum and the Boston Celtics. Okay, a year later, they match up against the Toronto Raptors. Again, the team that you and I know, most of their history, they have a great regular season, and then they melt in the playoffs. The baby dinosaurs get hit by the asteroid, or however you think the dinosaurs died. That's how the baby dinosaurs would flame out in the postseason. And it's Game 7. It's tied. and Kawhi Leonard infamously hits the 4 bounce on the rim game winner, and he sends Joel Embiid crying into the locker room. So last year, Embiid kind of disappointed, didn't meet expectations. Simmons got hurt, and Philadelphia got swept by Boston. This year, there's pressure on Philadelphia. Embiid, best season of his career. Simmons, best season of his career. Tobias Harris, one could argue. One could make a serious argument. I think Tobias Harris should have been an all-star this year. I really do. Tobias Harris, arguably, best season of his career. You now have Doc Rivers instead of Brett Brown. Right? I always said in the show, I did defend Brett Brown. You know, Sixers fans would just crush him like, he's terrible. And I'd always say, look, don't be mad at Brett Brown. Be mad at Sixers management. Brett Brown was only there for the Sixers rebuild. He was never there to lead them to a championship. He was just there to develop the younger players, maybe get them to the playoffs, nothing more than that. Doc Rivers, though, different story. Doc Rivers is a different story. He's won a championship in Boston. He's been to the playoffs year in and year out. We all know he's one of the best coaches in the league. No doubt about it. There's pressure on him, considering what happened with his Clippers last year, blowing a 3-1 lead. There's pressure on Embiid this season, on Simmons, on Harris to a lesser degree. And then you get the Miami Heat once again. Even though they're the defending Eastern Conference champion and took what was clearly a better Lakers team 6 games, that Miami Heat team has no expectations, at least by, I guess, the general NBA public, the fans, the media. Nobody outside of South Beach thinks that the Heat are going to go to the finals. So once again, you'll have the veteran all-star Jimmy Butler saying, hey guys, you know what? Let's do what we did last year. There was pressure on our opponent, who was the number 1 seed, and there was no pressure on us, and we won in 5 games. It was a gentleman's sweep. 5-game series they won against the Bucks. And this year, a possible second-round matchup against the 76ers, who have certainly goals at the very least to get to Eastern Conference Finals and play most likely Brooklyn, if not Milwaukee. But certainly, we all expect the 76ers to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. But Miami is like, hey, there's no pressure on us. Nobody expects us to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. But the difference is, it will not be necessarily a sign of no expectations. I know we all know how Jimmy Butler works, right? He's going to tell those young guys, Bam, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Kendrick Nunn, those young kids in Milwaukee, or not Miami. He's going to say, you know what? We're the defending Eastern Conference champions, and nobody's picking us to get out of the second round. Jimmy Butler going to take that as a slight. He's going to, in the words of the GOAT, Michael Jordan, he's going to take that personal. That's how he works. He's so similar in so many ways to Jordan, how he goes about business, how he conducts, his leadership, very similar to Michael Jordan in many ways. So I think that's just a really interesting story to follow up. I'm just saying, if it's Heat 76ers in the second round, we could see a 7-gamer. And if it goes to a 7th game, hey, we all know crazy things happen in Game 7. Who knows what could happen? So that'd be really interesting. So I would just say this, if I'm the 76ers, you better hope you don't get Miami in the second round. You better hope that you get either the Knicks or the Hawks. Okay. The Knicks will put some dents into Philadelphia because they're a great defensive team, because Tom Thibodeau is one of the best defensive coaches in basketball. And I mean, man, those guys play hard every single night. I love watching the Knicks play. I really do. And I'm genuinely happy for them that finally, after an 8-year drought, they're in the playoffs. I'm happy for all, Spike Lee and Tracy Morgan and Stephen A. Smith and all the celebrity Knick fans and all the non-celebrity Knick fans. Congrats to y'all. Y'all deserve it to get into the playoffs at the very least, after years and years and years and years of long suffering. And if it hasn't been 50 years, it's darn close. that the Knicks have won a championship. So I still, if I'm Philadelphia, I would much rather play the Knicks than the Heat in the second round. So with that being said, that is all the time we have for today's show. Got a huge weekend in sports. Of course, we just had the schedule reveal in the NFL. But this weekend, playoff implications for almost every game in the NBA this weekend. Tomorrow is going to be a very emotional day as the great Kobe Bryant, along with the great Tim Duncan and the great Kevin Garnett, along with other, you got to be great to get in the Hall of Fame, obviously, along with other basketball icons, will be inducted into the it's not the pro basketball, it's the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. Of course, the headliner will be the late Kobe Bryant. Michael Jordan will be the presenter. I could be wrong. I think Kobe's widow, Vanessa Bryant, will speak at the event, at the induction. So it's going to be an emotional ceremony tomorrow. It's devastating that Kobe isn't going to be here for it. But, just continue to pray for the Bryant family, for his wife, his daughters, all those that knew him. It's going to be a really tough day tomorrow, but certainly a celebration of what he did as in my view, one of the 5 greatest players in the history of the game. So, and certainly all the respect in the world also to Tim Duncan, greatest power forward of all time, and Kevin Garnett, one of the greatest power forwards of all time in his right as well, champion with the Boston Celtics. So it's going to be I think Rudy Tomjanovich is going to the Hall of Fame as well. So stacked class, going to be an amazing day of basketball tomorrow, an amazing weekend. So cannot wait for Monday. Going to be talking all about the play-in. And, man, who knows? Maybe do we get Aaron Rodgers news over the weekend? We can see what happens there as well. So looking forward to that. Great weekend in sports coming up. So hope everybody enjoys themselves over these next few days. Have a great weekend. Please continue to stay safe. God bless you all. And as always, peace out.